Hello and welcome back to another monthly cup, and this time we have a killer for you, especially in game number one, but we'll get into that very shortly. Joining me on the desk today is none other than Scorch. How are you doing? Are you excited for this cup?
I am so excited for this cup. It's going to be a great field of players today. Of course, we continue to see newer and newer players break through and make their monthly cup debuts, and I'm really excited to see what they're able to bring out.
And we're going to be starting off with an amazing match. We're going to have the monthly cup champion Teddy taking on Pelon, and that is going to be one hell of a game because these two players are at the top of their form in Faeria in recent months. But let's take a look at the bracket and see exactly what's going down in round one. Teddy versus Pelon right at the top there, giving Pelon an opportunity to win $100 from that bounty. But we also have Arianel in close vicinity, another monthly cup champion, with Lou as well as a runner-up, and King Dance. You were saying before the broadcast that top part of the bracket is a shark pool.
Yeah, it looks incredibly strong. Of course, even the ones that we consider, those top tier, you look at some of the other ones. Aether Llama has been now around for quite a while, it seems. Red One making a debut here with the community vote. Even those players who, we look at just the ones who have won a monthly cup or placed in the top three in a monthly cup. Those other players could really make a run as well. It just looks like anyone really could win that top corner.
In the bottom left-hand side, we have Alvar, runner-up in the last monthly cup, going against a monthly cup champion, Mayhem. Modnik as well, another monthly cup champion, going against Killing Time. Ez of Dawn is a name that I'm very interested in. Got rank 1 in the ladder, kind of came out of nowhere, and, he was able to get the highest elo of this ladder season, so I'm very excited to see what he's capable of.
Yeah, I've seen the name kind of pop up as I've been doing the qualifier spreadsheet and all the previous results and that sort of thing. And it's a name that I've noticed kind of over and over, and then just seems to keep getting eliminated in qualifiers by what we consider some of the big names. So I'm really expecting that he's going to bring out something good. And, this part of the bracket doesn't look any easier for some of these players.
And the top right-hand corner, Zarakar got second place last month, if you just saw in the recap. And he's gone against Yomimi, a Japanese representative playing Faeria. It's always great to see the other sides of the world getting involved. Mino Caro as well in that part. Hunter as well, who made a big splash on the ladder last season, getting top 10. And of course, Aya73, another monthly cup champion. So we have monthly cup champions kind of spread all over the bracket this time.
Yeah, it should be very interesting to see how that one plays out as well throughout the course of the day.
And then bottom right-hand corner, Imperia, probably the most consistent monthly cup contender we've ever had. He's always making top 4. Maybe this is his opportunity to get that number 1 spot. Along with Trek as well, a teammate he had to play in the first round last time. They are very close to each other this time as well. So there may be a run back of that in the future. And of course, we have Sweetie in the bottom right-hand corner, 2-time monthly cup champion and the Battle of the Gods champion as well. So this tournament is stacked as usual, but when is the monthly cup never stacked? Let's be honest. Every time we talk about brackets in this cup, it's always this guy's good, this guy's good, this guy's good, and we just go through the list. It's like, wow, everyone's good. It's crazy.
Yeah, it's really insane, and it only gets more and more interesting when we see newer and newer players make it through qualifiers, because then those spots are limited for who we consider some of the big dogs in Faeria to come through the qualifier, and then you see somebody like ES of Dawn take the number 1 spot. It's just like, who is going to win this? It's incredible to look at the bracket this way.
Before we jump into the match, there's one more talking point I'd like to cover, and that is Triton Trainer. Now, Triton Trainer received a nerf before this monthly cup. The players had a week to prepare. It got reduced to a 3-2 for free Faeria, and now only increases the attack of a jump creature. It doesn't increase the life anymore. And last cup we saw Teddy go 12-2, and one of the main culprits of that fantastic result was Blue Jump. A very powerful deck back then when you could increase the life of your creatures and create these really sturdy jumpers in Ninja Toad and Triton Warrior. How do you feel this nerf is going to affect the meta? Do you think people are going to still bring Blue Jump, or they're going to lean to other decks?
I would still expect to see Blue Jump. Of course, Triton Trainer was such a big impact card, and especially with the like Ninja Toad synergy as well. You could get a clear in and have that creature survive, double collecting in the process. I think that the deck is still really strong. Of course, it has all of this really good movement, but I think that the nerf itself kind of opens up a lot of options. It's not like everyone has to bring blue jump because it's considered to be the best deck. We might see some blue sevens. We might see some, more blue control type of archetypes. Maybe we'll even see some red blue bargain because people are moving into that type of thing. I just think it makes it so that the deck isn't a must bring, but it still is strong enough to play.
Yeah, I agree. We're going to still see some Crackthorn, going to still see yellow events, but Blue Jump has been tamed, and this monthly cup will give us an idea of where the meta stands after that nerf. So let's not keep you guys waiting any longer. We're going to jump into the match, and joining Scorch on the cast for the first time, a warm welcome to Superb Lizard, and he is going to be joining Scorch and giving you the action. So take it away, guys. Let's get into the game.
All right, let's get into this one. Super Blizzard, as Aquablad said, joining for the cast here. How are you doing today, man?
I'm doing fine, man. I'm excellent. I'm very curious to see what Teddy's going to bring. He was known for his blue jump. On ladder, he did absolutely fantastic with it. And like Aqua said in the monthly, he had a fantastic score of 12-2. So,
yeah, and of course, we saw that be a 3-0 in the finals as well, so it was such a strong deck for him.
Yeah. So maybe he has some adoration of blue jump that no one knows yet. Maybe added some libraries. There's a bunch of new archetypes. The whole Triton Trainer nerf opened up. Since you're not forced to play blue jump anymore because it's the best blue deck, you can maybe even bring something like a blue 7 stack to the monthly.
Yeah, and we see the opening hand here. Having that Battletoads, having the Triton Warrior definitely makes me think that this is more leaned of a blue jump specifically. And Spell Whirl's still something that we're seeing a lot of from these players, liking it over some of the other kind of teched-in cards that they may be running.
Well, I think Aether Llama did some math on that. The cards you could get which were good and playable were about 65%, like really top-notch cards, and about 69% was just playable of all the cards you could get.
Yeah, it always seems like it gives you something good.
Yeah, it's basically a 2-for-1, a free 2-for-1.
And so we do see him go for the Battletoad start here. What do you think of the Battletoads versus the Triton Warrior, getting that down early, especially in a situation like this where you're not going to be able to build the lands to double collect?
Well, they are weaker to removal though, that's for sure. And Triton Warrior would have been able to do some work with a movement effect, maybe contest something like Brigand or any 4-health creature really. We see the underground boss though, which is just going to eat these Battletoads if they don't find a good place to hide. So now we see Triton Warrior come down, we see the command in hand and the Prophet. Have a potentially a very nice combo here.
Yeah, this is looking to be a really good setup for Teddy. Pelon does pick up the Wood Elemental now, so that'll really help him accelerate towards the Ground Shaker. Not quite enough of a Faeria right now where Pelon could go for the water or the Wood Elemental and the Grove Caller in one turn and move that underground boss up aggressively, but we are just going to see him reset back to the corner there.
Yeah, underground boss is a really nice tech choice against blue jump, because blue has no way of dealing with it really. You don't want to frogify it. It's kind of meh because it's a 5-drop and you waste 4 Faeria on the frogify, so it's really hard to deal with. But we see the Emperor's Command, which is almost does the same as Triton Trainer really, because it gives you the efficient combat traits you're looking for. I mean, with a Triton Trainer you would have had a 6/6 instead of a 4/4 that would contest the Brigand, the underground boss as well. But Command basically does the same here.
Yeah, Teddy actually sitting with a lot of options right now. Could go for the Frogify, could go for the Emperor's Command. Actually could have gone really aggressive and killed off the Wood Elemental instead, but just looks so much better to go for the underground boss here, and gets the very important lake placement up inside that well really early into the game.
It's really nice. Such a good spot for Mystic Beasts later. I also like the fact that he pushed the lake into the middle of the map, So that way his jumpers can reach every single card Pelon plays. And we see the Frogify in hand, so anything big that Pelon's going to drop is going to get Frogified and killed off by that frog.
Yeah, that's a really important spot.
Against that.
As much as we talk about how important it is to get your land placement around the opponent's well, for blue jump, even sometimes in the case of like yellow events as well, because of the movement, getting the middle positioning is very important because it gives you reach everywhere on the map.
Exactly. We do see a Gyarados on hand though, which is going to be a disaster for Teddy.
Pelon definitely would have liked to have been able to play that on the last turn here. It would have done a lot of work.
Let's see if Teddy plays around it.
Not really anything in hand right now. Gabriel Noble doesn't really do a lot here. Gabriel Enchantress doesn't have a great target at this stage of the game, so I really wouldn't expect Teddy to do anything, but that really feels bad as blue jump to not do anything for a turn.
Yeah, but I mean, he's out-collecting him by far, so there's that. Now we do see Gyarados come down. It's a bit awkward that he couldn't place it on the one mountain in double collect where it can charge down to get aggressive lands. That would have been huge. Like getting the X-Grinder spot mirror to Teddy's Mystic Beast spot would have been very nice for Pelon.
Yeah, definitely would have been, especially with Pelon on 3 of each land now, looking to set up a Crackthorn play next turn. If you could have got that Gyarados in a position where it could hit face, or even just getting the Crackthorn in the right positioning to as a follow-up, would have been such a big swing instead of where Pelon's Gyarados currently sits. But Teddy doesn't really have a good answer. Of course, he has the Frogify to play on Gyarados, but doesn't really have a lot of follow-up right now.
Yeah, and you don't want to play a Ninja Toad and trade into Ninja Toad Frogify just doesn't seem very worth it. At least I feel that way.
There's certain times where you could get like a double collection with the Ninja Toad, maybe use a movement and move it across the map and get a triple collection even, and then your Ninja Toad is very efficient. But yeah, especially in this situation when you don't have that Triton Trainer buff, using a Frogify and then the Ninja Toad just seems really bad here. Yeah,
and that's where the nerf hit Blue Jump. Having the Ninja Toad survive after a trade just won you the games often. It's the same with Freedom Fighter. I've played quite some games of Blue Haste where you use Ninja Toad and Freedom Fighter exclusively. I made that deck prior to Blue Jump, and having Freedom Fighter survive a trade was just so good. Like getting the double collect in, clearing off a charger with like something like a Freedom Fighter plus Campfire, made it really, really hard for your opponent to come back. Because you get that additional creature, and that requires an answer from your opponent. Something like a Soul Drain in the best case.
Yeah, definitely.
If you're playing red.
And now we actually see one of kind of the swings of this type of a matchup. Of course, red-green, even just red itself, has the AoE to take care of all of the little blue jump creatures that are out and around. We saw how much value Gyarados really got for Pelon here. But then once the blue starts to drop these Colossus, if you don't have your creatures in the right positions, you can actually struggle to deal with them. And we're actually going to see that now from Pelon because of the positioning where Gyarados had to come down. He's not really in a good spot to kill off this Colossus, and Teddy just went for essentially trying to end the game as fast as possible, playing the Ninja Toad, playing that Colossus.
We see a Grove Caller plus Ground Shaker, so you could potentially +1 teleport the Gyarados there and trade in the Colossus.
And that looks exactly like what he's going to do.
Yeah. And you even get the Ground Shaker and double collect if you choose to. Or maybe he's going for a Crackthorn?
I wouldn't expect to see the Crackthorn here. Maybe you could go for it.
Oh, he goes for the greedy line.
Oh, this is incredibly greedy. And doesn't dash the Crackthorn in to block the Colossus attack either.
Yeah, but still, it's looking very grim for Teddy now. He lost almost all of his board, and the Crackthorn buffs were incredibly lucky. So now Wave Crush can trade into a Gyarados, or can trade into Crackthorn, but it will still die. If the Crackthorn would have gotten a 1 buff less, Teddy could have went for the value trade, maybe. But yeah, even then we see the Ground Shaker in hand as an answer.
Yeah, and Teddy does have a lot of time. That's a big thing right now because of the way that the plays were made, and now Pelorn being on 6 life remaining, he has played very defensively. Even the Crackthorn that we saw, usually you want to use that dash to be aggressive and get right next to your opponent's orb with that extra movement. But we see a 6/6 just collecting off to the right side. We see both of the Wood Ellie and the Grove Collar up in the top left corner, really doing nothing at this stage but being defensive.
Yeah.
So Teddy has a lot of time right now. Even if he doesn't have great cards to play at this stage of the game, of course he has the Frogifies as answers, but he has a lot of time to draw into other things, draw into the rest of the Colossus that he needs to try to end the game.
We see the Flame Burst in the Colossus. He probably wants to keep the Wood Elemental as a taunt to prevent any Ninja Toad or Aurora shenanigans that would be a potential lethal. I think Teddy is looking at Mythmaker Ninja Toad to finish this game off.
Yeah, and keeping that Wood Elemental alive is very important to have that taunt, like you're saying. Mystic Beast picked up. Now that is a card that actually could do a bit of work here, but that Ground Shaker in hand for Pelorn going to be the perfect answer if that's a line that he goes for.
Yeah. We see 3 Frogifies in Teddy's hand. Those were some unfortunate draws. He didn't find any good targets for them earlier, and we'll see how he manages.
Yeah, that is a good Frogify there onto the 6/6, and especially playing the Mystic Beast in this position. You now force, it looks like, the Axe Grinder to trade, and that means the Axe Grinder is not going to kill off the Enchantress. The Enchantress is going to survive for another turn, possibly, depending on the way that Pelorn wants to play it out, but
We do see the buff come down. And
so that's going to allow him to push up. So it is beautifully played out by Pelorn.
Yeah.
One of the things of Blue Jump is that it does have so much board presence. It always out-collects. It wants to obviously jump around, and you want to sit on minimum of 2 collection spots, usually 3. Sometimes you even get 4, and you outpace your opponent that way. When you're able to control the board in the way like this, like Pelorn is doing, Blue Jump just doesn't have all of the options. We see really nothing in Teddy's hand that can allow him to snowball back into the game here.
We do have the Mythmaker though. That's one part of the combo. Now he only needs the Ninja Toad and has to save up enough Faeria so he can Frogify the Taunt, play the Ninja Toad, collect, and Mythmaker it to push for 6 face damage.
Now, in this situation, because maybe that's what you're expecting your opponent's end game is going to be, would we expect to see Pelorn start filling in more lands just to play around something like a Shifting Tide or a Sunken Tower if Teddy draws one off of something like the Spell Whirl here? Or do you continue just to draw cards to get as much pressure as possible?
It's a tough call. I feel like at least Pelon feels like he's very safe with his 2 taunts there and the Guidance in hand. He can choose to heal if he wants to. That puts him behind 2 Faeria though, in board control, if he really wants to do that. Teddy, however, needs to find Ninja Toad first in order to pull off the combo.
Well, now even just this Water Elemental represents it. Water Elemental, with that Prophet of Tide specifically picked up, could move in the right ways, and then Aurora. Even just waiting a turn or 2 from Teddy, and then you can Prophet, Aurora, and Frogify. If you can get them to line up the right way, Frogify that taunt away. So it's going to be very important for Pelorn to kill off this Wood Elemental in the right way.
We'll have to see how this plays out. He's deciding on where he should put his Wood Elemental. He goes in for the double collection.
That's a very risky positioning.
Yeah.
Because it does open up a line here. Of course, Teddy doesn't have a way to exploit it at this stage, but it does open up a line of moving that Wood Elemental away to the left spot that's open, or even just down one if you can get the right jump with your Water Elemental and exploit that top right corner.
We see a Beirut actually from Teddy here. It's interesting because Beirut was considered not that great for a long time because it gets countered by Last Nightmare, Frogify. But now with all these Crackthorn decks, they don't really have an answer for Beirut. It's a perfect choice against Crackthorn since you not only get the 8-10 body, which is very strong against Crackthorn, but you also get to transform their lands. if Teddy would have drawn that earlier, he could have potentially stopped Pelon from developing Crackthorn Beast, or really, really hindered his X-Grinder progression, for example. Feels like
Yeah,
such a strong card
definitely
in that
true.
matchup.
Of course, the hard removal answer is something that we see from any big creature. If you're playing those, you always have the threat of big hard removal just denying the value that you have there. Ooh, unfortunate on the Crackthorn there to only get 1 damage onto the Water Elemental. Really wanted to get 2, and then you could use the Ground Shaker to clear that, but... Yeah, going back to the Beru there, it is so strong against something like this Crackthorn where they need all of their lands developed. And if you can deny even just 1 or 2, then your opponent has to respond by making a land. And then, like you said, Beru is a big enough body that it usually survives. So it's going to then deny land over and over again. So something that you can get a lot of value of, specifically in this matchup.
I'm wondering what Pelon's thinking at the moment. Is he going for the preemptively heal to play around any shenanigans, really? Or is he just going to get greedy and wait for something else? Maybe drop a Ground Shaker aggressive, try to close up this game.
Yeah, it definitely seemed like in that spot, if the Water Elemental had taken 2 damage and you could have cleared it with the Ground Shaker, that seemed like a very obvious line just to kill off that creature. But having not killed it definitely seems like, and now Teddy on 9 Faeria as well, you know there are plays that can be made there to possibly end the game. So definitely want to go for the clear, or the heal here, and that's exactly what he does.
Yeah, very nice read. You're winning on board anyways. Might as well preemptively heal to play around really anything that blue has to offer. Any crazy combination that you could think of. So I like that play from Pelon a lot. Teddy really he set all of his poker chips on that one play, the one Mythmaker push for face. He's really now he's really now in a tough spot, having to decide whether he wants to play his Beru now, maybe to try to recapture the left side of the board. But then again, an X-Grinder and a Crackthorn are pushing towards face. It's really hard.
Right now the line that I see is going for Aurora onto the Water Elemental so that you can clear the 4/4 and deny your opponent pushing some orb damage next turn. And then you can Creation Aurora and play it on herself. Maybe even up in the top right corner, place a 6/6 up there in a position where your opponent has to use one of these taunts to respond to it. But Teddy going to essentially looks like go for the all-in play of Beru up in the top.
Yeah, I like that one. It's really aggressive, and we see the double Frogify in hand. So if Teddy gets to collect, and then he can +1 next turn to double Frogify and push for 8 face damage, and then Pelon is in Ninja Toad range.
Yeah, that really seems like Teddy's just kind of over and over pushing for, I just need the Ninja Toad, maybe Ninja Toad and Aurora, but he just needs one more hit now because Pelorn went for the healing. So just needs that little bit extra damage, really going for it here with the Beru.
We see the clear though.
Yeah, it's going to have to be cleared here. We have already seen 2 Emperor's Commands used as well from Teddy, so that 1 life left on the Wood Elemental, depending on how many commands are run in Teddy's list here, it could be very safe.
Yeah, but he was losing on board.
Yeah, there was lethal now set up from Pelorn, so able to take the game in very nice fashion. Of course, defeating what we saw was such a dominant deck, not only last Monthly Cup, but really the Monthly Cup before as well.
Yeah, we really see how the Triton trainer nerf hurt the deck.
Yeah, we actually didn't see any Triton trainers at all, so I'm wondering if Teddy's running them. I would still expect that he would be running them in the deck, just because it is still such a staple card of the archetype, but didn't end up seeing any of them throughout the course of that game.
I feel like Triton trainer is not going to see much play, because earlier, before Gift of Steel got buffed, it was only a +3 attack buff, and nobody played it. It was considered one of the worst cards. Even yeah, I think everyone agreed on that. But after the changes that it gave life to all the combat creatures, it was it became a staple in almost any good combat burn deck, really.
Yeah, definitely true. So we do see Teddy come out with the yellow events as the counter here. A deck that can exploit really good trades on some of the early creatures and then has hard removal for the big creatures once you get into the mid and late game. But Teddy actually looks like he has a pretty poor start as far as yellow events is concerned.
Yeah, double Colossus definitely something you don't want to see in your starting hand. But he has to explore though. That means his Colossus are going to get cheap rather quick. Depends on what his next draws are.
I really like the start there by Pelon, even just turn 1 going for the mountain, because that sets you up for so many options on your second turn. He drew into the underground boss and could have gone for that, but instead decided to go for the forest and develop the wood elemental there. It just gives you so many options for what you want to do on turn 2 by going for the mountain first and then the forest if you choose to.
I also like spreading the lands with the Crackthorn. So you have a red land on the right side, on the left side from Teddy's view, and green land on the right side. Just gives you more options to defend your orb. See trade here, probably.
Yeah, trade here isn't too bad with the Soul Drain. Does allow a Kaleem to come in from behind. Seems like pretty good. Kaleem is such a good card, especially in the starting hand, but even just getting it on turn 3 like this, still able to put out so much pressure, especially against some of these smaller creatures that red-green usually starts with.
Yeah. Setting up Kaleem in double collection is very nice. Now he draws some more mobility, and maybe something like an Outland Ranger, he can take care of that wood elemental.
Yeah, now we actually see Pelon really doesn't have a good follow-up here. Could use the Grove Color, maybe you teleport the wood elemental over the other side and put a buff into it, but as soon as you start to pre-buff creatures, you really run the risk of Last Nightmare getting a lot of value. But like the other option is Axe Grinder, which just trades freely to Kaleem anyway. I
feel like Axe Grinder buff might be the play here. You can even go for a Guidance if you want to. That's 5 Faeria invested in 1 creature. And Last Nightmare cost 6 Faeria, so maybe that's the play here.
But yeah, it's very true. I think the Last Nightmare you're even still fine using the Last Nightmare there, even though it loses 1 value by itself, because it keeps your Kaleem safe on that side. He's going to double collect next turn, so just the board pressure is going to be so much more valuable, even just losing that 1 Faeria on the hard removal.
Yeah, true. I mean, there's a reason why it's called Yellow Tempo. You want to make tempo plays, and yeah. Last Nightmare would be definitely a great pickup here. Teddy has to top deck it though, since he's on 2 deserts, and we know Last Nightmare requires you to have 3 deserts. So he goes for the Axe Grinder on the left side. That might telegraph Grove Collar maybe to Teddy.
We do see that pre-buff coming through. Just playing away from it so that you don't give away free trades onto Kaleem, but you're just giving up pressure as well. And now double Charger picked up. This is where Teddy can really start to get some value depending on what he picks up next turn.
Yeah, but I feel like Grove Collar trade will be a more than a sufficient answer.
Yeah, Grove Color does look like it's going to be a really good play here. Firestorm, interestingly enough, is something that's actually very weak in this matchup. Just because you have things like the Windstorm Charger here survives because it has 4 life.
A lot of 4 health creatures, even the Shaitan Demon, for example. Really only the only 2 cards you can get value of are Outland Ranger and Overturn Fanatic, I think.
Yeah, then once you start to get into the bigger things like the Colossus again, like we saw even in last game with the blue deck, the Colossus just does so much work against some of these.
Yeah. I feel like we're gonna see Charger here and maybe Campfire on the second Charger, because the first one's going to die anyways, if it hits into the Axe Grinder.
Yeah, it's always better to obviously use that Campfire on another creature rather than the one that's going to die anyway. If it was in a situation where you could get the Charger to survive, then maybe you use the Campfire on it, but Teddy just finally able to find some events there and get that synergy with these chargers, start getting the discounts onto the Colossus, because currently sitting at 7 is not what you want to play those Colossus for.
Yeah. As soon as it gets to 6 Faeria, it becomes much more viable, though. It's a Verdun force with dash, essentially. We do see the Flash Wind in hand for Teddy.
Yeah, that's going to open up a lot of options depending on the way that he needs to make plays next turn. Pelon right now with really not a good answer again. The Underground Boss currently looks like in a bad position just to get traded by the Charger here. Maybe that sets you up into Firestorm range, so you want to play that as a bait for your opponent, but really looking for some of the bigger creatures right now, looking for a Ground Shaker, looking for those Crackthorns, really start exerting some pressure onto the yellow events here, moving up the board instead of just playing so defensively.
And so far the Rune's Guidance on the Wood Elemental has done nothing for Pelon. It's really 2 Faeria dumped into a collection creature. It's not going to help him with his board.
Yeah, it does essentially guarantee that you have that creature up there collecting, so maybe you get the value from it over time, but it really doesn't help right now because you have so much Faeria essentially wasted doing nothing, like you're saying.
Yeah. I feel like the only card that would maybe be good against the Wood Elemental would be a Choking Scent, but even then, the Wood Elemental has been collecting so much that it has outvalued its 4 Faeria, and even the gift of creating a forest is considered worth card draw or Faeria, if you want to.
Yeah, now we see Teddy start to push up. Of course, had that Flash Win, like you mentioned, get that extra synergy with the Charger and get a really nice clear onto the Grove Caller. And then the massive swing of the Colossus, able to dash right up into the top right corner. Doesn't even need the Desert in the right position.
Yeah, and we do see a double Wind Soldier in hand. So next turn he can clear the Taunt, hit him for 10 damage, and if Pelon doesn't find an answer, he's going to lose this one, I feel like.
Yeah, this definitely seems like a position where Pelon might just have to Firestorm and play Axe Grinder. Firestorm looks okay enough, clears off the Charger, clears off the Outland Ranger down in the bottom right, and you just have this one Colossus to deal with now. I'm kind of surprised that he went far side with the Axe Grinder, but I guess that just plays around the Wind Soldier that he's afraid of there.
Yeah. See a Demon picked up.
This has to be second Colossus now. As soon as Teddy went for the draw there, we know he's not going to develop another aggressive Desert, so it has to be just another Colossus dash up into the side.
At this point, though, I'm wondering why he didn't went for the Time of Legends. Maybe it's bad to get a bad card in the deck like an Orosei or Iona, but it would be a 0-cost Time of Legends because it reduces your Colossus.
Yeah, could have got that one extra discount. Possibly just the thinking is that you want the cards that are already in the deck instead of the possibility of drawing into a bad card. Even something like Doomgate really doesn't do anything here. You're essentially going to go for the deserts just because anything else doesn't really make sense. So getting something like the Doomgate, like Iona, even Azurai. Azurai actually could do decent, but it's probably just not going to build up to that 10 Faeria for Teddy. So I think not using it, he's just thinking, I want one of the cards that are already in my deck instead of something that would be much worse.
I mean, you could always risk it for a second Kaleem.
Yes.
Teddy's been playing a lot of poker as well. Maybe he knows his odds, and he didn't figure on this one. Didn't think he would have the luck on his side. We see a Flash Wind here, which is essentially a +1 Faeria for Teddy, if he chooses to collect with a Wind Soldier.
Yeah, that does look really nice. Flash Wind with 2 Chargers gone and 2 Colossus already played doesn't have a lot of really good synergy anymore. You're already at that break point, essentially, but looks like Teddy is considering going for it, but doesn't use it in the end. Possibly just because he couldn't build up to anything else. If you were able to get that collection and that allowed you to play like a Shaitan Demon as a follow-up, I think you could very safely go for that. But without any other play afterwards, going from 1 Faeria to 2 Faeria really doesn't do anything for you. So
yeah, that's true.
We do see the lands enough for Pelon there. Could have gone for a +1 and then Crackthorn play, but choosing just to go for the passive Wood Elemental and hope it survives. But Colossus right now just representing... Actually, no, Colossus
Lethal.
is lethal, yeah. Flash Wind going for the Soul Drain play instead here, but Flash Wind could have moved the Wood Elemental down onto the desert. Colossus would have had the free hit to the face, but we do see a great pickup there from Teddy. Great response.
Yeah. Very nice game.
We do unfortunately have a bit of an issue here. We realized, well, Atmaz pointed out kind of halfway through here that this is set up as a private lobby. So we're going to have to actually drop and remake the lobby here and just have the players surrender a game, their first game each, so that we can get a 1-1 score line and set up a tournament lobby. So that means I have to set this up here. So sorry for the delay here, guys. We will just be a second.
So what are your thoughts on Blue Jump so far? Do you think it's still viable after what we saw?
I think it's still close. Like I think it's still playable, but probably going to see it not necessarily move to the wayside, but it just opens up for something like a stronger blue controller, blue 7s to come in.
Yeah. I'm really hoping
Just needs you to leave the previous lobby there, so I can invite you to the new one.
Oh yeah, sorry. I'm really hoping we are going to see more of the blue archetype here, more variants, and maybe even some blue 7s or blue mid-range with a Herald. Herald used to be quite popular back in the day. Yes, I'm really excited.
We used to see blue, even Ludawan decks be incredibly popular throughout kind of the monthly cups in the fall and into the early winter season. But it'll be interesting if those are something that comes back. Oh, you don't have decks registered.
Oh.
So again, sorry for the delay here, guys. We just had a brief hiccup in setting up the lobby, so just going to get that reset here, and then we'll have the players go back and forth, surrender the game each to get it to the 1-1 scoreline, and then we'll have game number 3.
So I'm really curious to see what Pelon is going to bring to counter this yellow tempo. We've had a internal discussion at Team Zenith about potential yellow tempo counters, and we came up with this Reaver deck, which worked really well against yellow tempo, having the Aurora's trick to steal off the enemy chargers was a very fun thing to do.
I would definitely expect that's a high value card to use the trick onto.
Yeah. I mean, not Faeria wise, but you just get so much value out of denying your opponent the double collection and the board, really. Since Yellow Tempo is only Windstorm Chargers at its core.
Yeah, it's such an important card for the early tempo plays of the yellow player. So, all right, we do have this set back up to a 1-1 here, so we're going to ready up players getting into game number 3. Of course, we'll have to see what Pelon brings out as the response here. Teddy with the win on that yellow tempo deck, as you've been referring to it as.
Yeah. So this time we see an even better hand for Teddy than last time. Only one Colossus and a Charger instead. That's definitely what you want as your opening creatures.
Yeah, and Choking Sands in the opening hand of Pelon is essentially just as good as the trick that we've been talking about for blue in this type of a matchup, even though you, again, lose one Faeria with the Choking Sand versus the Windstorm Charger. If your opponent had 2 Chargers against your just 1 on the board, Choking Sands kills 1, your Charger kills the other, it can lead to a very big swing.
Yeah, definitely a very good tech choice here for the mirror. And we also see the Explore for Pelon. That means he gets his good desert spots one at the well, one in the center. So he has already those charge lines for further wind soldiers.
Yeah, and with a hand like this, where both players have a lot of responses, we'll definitely see them build towards each other. They essentially both want to exert dominance over the other here, and Pelorn going for that choking sand like we were talking about.
Yeah.
This ends up being, because of that early clear, Pelorn is so much further ahead than it currently looks, just because you have the potential of what Charger could do. Teddy right now just picking up another Windstorm Charger. Looks great. You can play it in a safe position in front of your own orb, but can't really do that because that opens up the threat of the Pelorn's Charger and something like the Flash Wind that we see in hand, allowing him to clear off, and then you lose your Charger for free. So even though it is very inefficient, Teddy just forced to go for the Last Nightmare there.
I mean, you have to keep in mind that Charger is double collecting, so it effectively denies your opponent 2 Faeria. That makes Last Nightmare only a 4 cost, which is about the same as the Choking Sand, really. So now we see Pelon ahead by 1 Faeria, which is not that much, but Demon in double collection represents definitely a threat here.
Yeah, and going for the Demon, of course, was Pelorn's really only creature that he could have played, but definitely don't want the Demon to be in a double collection spot like this, just because it is burning yourself, with that self-damage. Interesting that if we see Pelorn continue to go for deserts, I guess he's just going to double Wind Soldier here, but generally you want to get 2, maybe 3 deserts for that Last Nightmare, and then start either developing the extra prairies that you need for your movement lines, or just going for a draw every single turn.
Yeah. Wind Soldier here does the same job as Last Nightmare on Teddy's turn, although the Windstorm Charger didn't represent a potential double collect here. So it's very slightly worse, I think. Also, it takes up 2 cards. We see Teddy has 5 cards in hand still, while Pelon only has the Flash Wind. So that might be something to consider. Pelon really needs to catch up in cards here. And he goes for the draw as expected.
Yeah, it does have that Charger to follow up here, so that'll be really nice. Demons, of course, can just trade, or Pelorn could step back, but I wouldn't expect it to move to that double collection. Yeah, and we do see him go for the trade there, so...
We might see a Wind Soldier clear here. I think Wind Soldier Soul Drain could be something you can consider.
So unfortunate in this spot of just 1 or 2 extra Faeria, or the lands in the right order could allow Teddy to win Soldier, and now with that Outland Ranger picked up would have been a big swing. Maybe
he could also go for an Outland Ranger plus Campfire, but then again this gets really punished by Outland Ranger of Pelon. So he goes for the Wind Soldier Soul Drain. And it's really just been a back and forth here.
Slight misstep by Teddy. I was going to say really nice land staggering as well, going for the prairie, then waiting until the Wind Soldier was in the right position and playing the prairie up in the top right corner to allow you to get your really good deserts right beside the orb. But Teddy, unfortunately, looked like he just acted too quickly and attacked with the Wind Soldier before he was able to get that land down. So prairie off to the left side in a position where it's really not going to do anything.
Yeah. Pelon chooses to play around a potential Wind Soldier. Soul Drain, I mean, since he already saw a Wind Soldier of Teddy. And Teddy really doesn't have any responses anymore. I feel like the one who gets the double collection here is going to win the game, just because they get the tempo advantage.
Yeah, I think both players are pretty close in terms of their Colossus value right now. Just looking at the one in Teddy's hand sitting at 8, I don't think Pelorn's played too many more events. Played the Choking Sand early, and then this Soul Drain is possibly just the second one. We do see a Demon picked up, so now Pelorn in a very good position where he can start to push some aggression with the Demon and have the Outland Ranger sit back behind a double collect.
This almost looks like game. Depending on if Teddy can switch sides here and try to snowball his advantage with a Charger. But I feel like he's just going to get Nightmared again.
I feel like that is really just the play you have to go for. Especially in this position, you just continue to deny everything you can from your opponent.
Yeah. Really unfortunate for Teddy. He has no board. Is staffed on Faeria.
Time of Legends is a decent enough pickup because it allows you to get Kaleem, which could be a card that brings you back into the game, especially if you can kind of bait out a Last Nightmare here. Of course, you're expecting a Soul Drain or a Wind Soldier would be much better for your opponent, but Windstorm Colossus now picked up. I would expect that just dashes straight to the face.
Yeah. I feel like Flashwind Demon is player into Windstorm. You could even consider, oh, yeah, he's going for the
Going
clear.
for the trade instead.
He really wants to staff Teddy in Faeria.
Yeah, and especially now with that Colossus coming down, every single piece of Faeria you can start from your opponent is so important.
Yeah.
Kaleem's training is very interesting to see in here. It's a card that I think has been kind of picking up a little bit of steam in this yellow events deck just because you can get so much value off your chargers, especially with your demons as well. But we do see the surrender come out from Teddy Pelon taking the response game.
Yeah. Great pickup with the early choking send against the charger.
Choking Sand's such an important card in that matchup. Of course, the Charger, like we talked about, like we saw in that game, but also for Kaleem. Really, if both players start with Kaleem, whoever gets the answer of a Choking Sands, which is so much more efficient than a Last Nightmare, is just so much further ahead.
Yeah. So we see a Monored, possibly Crackthorn from Teddy here.
Yeah, it does have a pretty good start, looks like. Ground Shaker, Cypher's Wrath, and the Flame Burst can do a lot of things to clear off whatever your opponent's early creatures are. Flame Burst is kind of an interesting one of that you might want to toss it away, and he does go for the toss there. Just because if your opponent starts with Windstorm Charger, you can go Ground Shaker and then use the Flame Burst. But anything else, you really don't want that Flame Burst in your opening hand. You want another creature.
Yeah. Underground boss is interesting. Looks like it's loose combat red, or at least some variation of it.
It could just be the Crackthorn, a similar list to what Pelorn was playing, and we're just not seeing any of the green yet. We've only seen those red cards to start with.
Yeah, that's also an option. But I feel like with Crackthorn you wouldn't open Mountain in the middle.
No, definitely wouldn't expect to see that. You generally see going into the sides, but of course, as we say that, there's the Wood Elemental, so it is a Crackthorn deck.
That's interesting though. I feel like as a red player, you never want to give the enemy charger lines to move on with his charger. It's always
an interesting debate because, like you're saying, that does give your opponent the right charger lines to get into the orb, but as much as you want to deny that, going in front instead of in beside building up to the well sometimes does allow you to get your Axe Grinder position quicker. Teddy in a very unfortunate position now because he went for the boss. He's going to have to switch sides, it looks like, with the Wood Elemental because his other line would have been the forest that he needed on the right there. He would have needed to step the boss onto to collect, and then you deny yourself from playing the Wood Elemental, so...
Yeah, we have to see how this one plays out.
Oh, such a big pickup finding the training there. It's going to allow Kaleem to kill off the Wood Elemental down in the side here if Pelorn chooses to go for that.
Yeah, that's a great pickup.
I don't see anything necessarily any better with the movement. Pelorn has just so much movement in hand right now. 2 Fanatics and the Flash Wind. Kaleem is going to have so much pressure over the course of the game.
Yeah. Maybe he's debating whether it's a bait for a Growth Caller.
Interestingly enough, Pelorn could go for some form of fly Kaleem into the middle, or even just back one space, and then Wind Soldier and Kaleem's training and have it move up and kill off the Wood Elemental. It keeps your Kaleem incredibly safe.
Oh yeah, that's right. Looks like he's going for that line.
I wonder if the Fanatic is going to come down and Kaleem's going to push some ARB damage. That looks exactly like he's going to go for.
Keeping Kaleem safe is a good move here.
And then the Flash Wind to zip away. a great early start here for Pelon, getting that really nice clear and pushing some damage. Of course, having all this movement to kite in and out, hit and run away.
Yeah, and now we see why the lands become problematic, because Kaleem can just step on the mountain, get an aggressive desert next to Teddy's orb, and just starts pressuring. It's looking very rough. Underground boss doesn't really do much at the moment. It's just sitting there, very immobile.
Does
Teddy
look like a
can't even-
position where Teddy actually could use the +1 Faeria. You've had 2 Wood Elementals at this stage, so you're able to accelerate towards your Crackthorn play. It does go for the +1. I was thinking to use the Cypher's Wrath to kill off the Fanatic, but looks like Teddy's going to hold on and go for possibly a Crackthorn or a Ground Shaker, depending on what he needs more next turn.
Yeah. We see the last Nightmare in Pelon's hand, which is going to take good care of the underground boss.
Unfortunately, not another movement possible to be played here. Otherwise, both of these Kaleem's followers could come down and push a lot of damage. But even just the fact that you've got your opponent down to 12, you're looking at maybe just a single Colossus could end the game at any point if you're able to push that extra little bit of damage.
And it looks like Teddy's going to have to play poker again with the Crackdown in hand. Let's see what the RNG brings.
It's actually interesting here if you want to go for Crackthorn or if you want to go for the Ground Shaker, just because the Ground Shaker does kill off. That is an unbelievably good result. No damage to the orb, enough buffs onto the Wood Ellie that it kills Kaleem and survives very healthy, not with just 2 life like the Soul Drain would be able to clear off, or 3 that the Wind Soldier would be able to clear, but just unbelievably good there for Teddy that he ends up with the correct result.
Great turn here for Teddy. Some Crackdowns can be insane. I've had one Crackdown where it killed all my battle shots, and I had a Wave Crush and Herald, I think, on board. And just clear all my shots.
I mean, even in that situation, it killed off the follower and the Fanatic as well, where Kaleem could have taken a brunt of the damage. So I think Kaleem was the main creature that you needed to kill off there. Even if the Fanatic survived, you were still okay with a board reset. It was just you needed Kaleem to die, and that's exactly what happened. Plus, best case scenario, everything else died. So Teddy looking in an incredibly strong position, going to be in a position to clear off anything that Pelon plays for the rest of the game, it looks like.
Yeah, and I only see double Soul Drain here as an answer, and hope that the Fanatic doesn't get cleared. But
yeah, it really needs something to survive.
See the Flame Burst in hand as an answer.
Don't need Flame Burst when you draw Cypher's Wrath.
I mean, yeah.
I'm actually surprised Teddy didn't go for pushing some land up the right side there. You really need something aggressive here when your opponent is starved for Faeria, starved for cards. Even just getting a double Prairie and then a Mountain next turn for this Ground Shaker, it would have represented pushing 5 damage the following turn. And Teddy just really needs that to get going at this stage.
That's true. But we do see a Sagami here as an answer. Maybe Teddy just wants to find more removal, more mobility, to really just take care of this board. And it looks like he's going for a Mountain there. And Ground Shaker. Is it Ground Shaker and Flame Burst, or?
Looks like it's just going to be the Grove Collar teleport across. He just saw double Soul Drains onto his Crackthorn on the turn before, so probably feeling very safe with leaving a 6-2 on the side here, not going to get removed in any kind of efficient fashion. Of course, as I say that, the Soul Drain gets picked up, so Pelon able to reset a little bit.
Yeah. I mean, both players have proven they are very good at top decking.
But again, you're kind of in a situation here where Teddy is in control, but really needs to start pushing that aggression. Right now, your opponent's sitting at 20 life. You know there's 3 discounted Colossus going to be coming up. Even just that Shaitan Demon could represent enough of a force that you have to respond to it right away. And there, of course, is the Colossus.
Faeria, Teddy, however, sitting at 11 Faeria. Looking very good. And we see the Elderwood, which will enable the Grove Color to trade here.
Yep, should be a very easy trade. Could even go for killing the demon with the Cypher's Wrath and the Grove Color just dying off in the process, but generally something that you don't want to have happen there. You want to buff and keep these creatures alive, so it's exactly what we see. But again, we see Teddy really not pushing the aggression here. He's just sitting with all of these answers in hand, and I mean, a ton of Faeria, but now once this Colossus comes down, you now have an unprotected orb just because of the way that the game has played out.
That's true, but we see plenty of answers in Teddy's hand, and plenty of Faeria to spend it. Kingsguard is an interesting tech choice by Pelon. I'm not really sure about it.
As good as the Crackthorn was earlier for Teddy, that one was brutal. Absolutely missing everything he needed. So gonna have to probably just Ground Shaker double Flame Burst.
It's still a good clear. Teddy applies so much pressure here, plays his whole hand.
And now we see that Ground Shaker get into the aggressive position. You're going to be able to push damage next turn and then have the Crackthorn start to step up, and you're represented with a 2-turn lethal at this stage.
We see Charger picked up, but it's a little bit too late for Pelon.
Yeah, and that's going to be the game. So we have a Game 5 for our first match. Very exciting to see. Of course, players exchanging blows back and forth, both responding in beautiful ways. So what would you expect the final deck is from Pelon? Are we going to see something blue come out just because we've seen the green, red, and the yellow?
I feel like Mono Green is such a strong deck. But he already used the Crackthorn. So it's Reaver Blue, actually. There are some mono green lists without the buffs from Crackthorn and without the wood elementals. Like you don't need to play Elderwood Embrace in every green deck. It's not a staple. You can also go to try to choose a Beast Master, for example, or maybe an Overgrown Tower. Like all these micro buffs are a good alternative to Elderwood Embrace.
Yeah, the buffs are always something that's very interesting in green-red, whether you want to play Elderwood Embraces, which just seems so strong, or whether you go for the Ruin's Guidance for the versatility of having that heal. Sometimes that does open you up to certain things in mono green as well. I think the Wood Elemental is a very strong one that you definitely want to have in both decks, which generally leads you to not play mono green if you're playing the Crackthorn deck.
Yeah, that's true. But then again, you can play a mono green without a Wood Elemental. People have been doing it before. It's just now that a lot of the guys playing Faeria have realized how strong Wood Elemental is. Having the Taunt and a 3/4 body is very good for an early game creature.
Definitely. And here we see kind of the same situation from Teddy that he had of the start of last game. Went for the Axe Grinder on turn 1, now wants to develop a Forest, but would have to go to the other side, play Wood Elemental to create the forest on the right, and spread out his creatures. Exactly the same start that we saw last game.
Yeah. And double Water Elemental here for Pelon, which could be insane if he draws into Reaver.
Yeah, this is a Reaver. This is actually a very good start for Pelorn as well. Having that Mirror Phantasm generally expects me to believe this is more of a control-heavy list. You're looking to get your Battletoads out early and then transform them up to 5/5s and start exerting your pressure over the board. Water Elementals, like you're saying, get you to that Dreamweaver stage, even 2 Forbidden Libraries much quicker than you normally would. It just definitely seems like more of the control rather than something like the blue jump that we've been so accustomed to seeing.
Yeah. We'll have to see if Pelon chooses to take in any mobility. That could be surprising, because usually Reaver lists don't run much mobility. Beirut is a great pickup here as well. Just going to be able to transform much of these lands.
We actually saw Teddy skip collection there, choosing to play the boss on the mountain just because of the way his lands have lined up. He's kind of restricted his own options of where he can play creatures right now, so went for the foregoing that collection for this turn to get the boss in the better position. But we see that Mirror Phantasm going to be a really good response coming through from Pelorn.
Yeah. Phantasm here is just great. I feel like Teddy didn't expect it, because most of the blue jump lists don't run Phantasm, or at least they didn't back in the days.
Yeah, Pelorn
So,
actually hadn't revealed too much. Just playing the Battletoads off the start, you really don't know what kind of blue you're facing at that stage. It could be blue jump still. It's a card that's run in that. It could be something more of a blue control. So we now see the Phantasm come out. Maybe something that would have surprised Teddy.
yeah. I feel like generally with Reaver decks, you often see people going to the sides because you're a late game deck and you have to scale, so you need to ensure you get the collection from your well, and you rather don't focus on collecting from enemy wells since you don't have a wave crush you can draw into. Because
Yep.
Reaver has plenty of late game.
Kind of way back before we saw the introduction of Triton Trainer and this blue jump, the big blue deck was something of the blue sevens. It had the Faeria generation engine of the Windfalls, and since that has been nerfed as well to 12 instead of 13 Faeria, you generally don't see them as much, but now we're seeing all of these type of more of almost a mid-range deck where you need that collection so much to accelerate through into your late game.
Yeah. And we see the Frogify come down here on Cypher. And Pelon is in a good spot here. I feel like blue Reaver is going to outscale Crackthorn. As soon as those 7/10s come down, there's not much you can do. And we even see the Beirut, which is going to be a nightmare for Teddy.
Yes. Interesting that Pelorn's actually holding onto these water elementals. Seems like kind of an obvious play at this stage, but it looks like he's also possibly just going to set up Beru for the following turn, want to start denying those lands as fast as possible. Instead of going for the water elementals, which you could use almost as a surprise factor later in the game. Your opponent thinks they're very safe because you're only on 5 lakes, for example, and then all of a sudden water elemental and the lake development, and you can get that Dream Reaver down that turn.
Yeah. If Teddy doesn't have an answer for Beru, you can even go for a double neutral here to secure even more lakes.
It looks like he's going to go for the lake and Beru on this position just because it denies 2 lands instead of just the 1 mountain there. So
that's
double buff coming up.
Not going to be enough though, unfortunately.
I do have to say I really like the way that Teddy's played this out because he kind of realized what the deck was going to be. He completely switched from having to try to contest the left side to just pushing up the right as fast as possible. Could have done it a little quicker by developing prairies instead of his colored lands here, but got the Axe Grinder position very quickly. Looks like he's going to be able to push some damage on the upcoming turn. He's just basically completely switched, saying, I think, like you mentioned, you're probably going to outscale me, so I'm just going to go for the race.
Yeah, definitely a good move by Teddy. Having the Axe Grinder to double collect is usually fine against blue jump, since you can use your removal to really just contest the board. But him playing blue 7s now does require some aggression. And this Beirut is looking very, very angry. He's gonna eat those mountains and forests in a second.
Teddy actually with an interesting decision here could buff up the water or the wet elemental enough that Beru can't kill it off, but then you play into Frogify very hard. Another thing right now is that Pelorn actually sitting with this Mirror Phantasm in between the wells, just double collecting, is some Faeria value lost there immediately, where a 5/5 could have been more impactful, but got so much value from the Battletoad that he transformed that it's just been so good for him, just so safe on the side here. And now we're going to start to see that water elemental. That means next turn a single lake and Dream Reaver is going to set up possibly a 2-turn kill for Pelorn.
Yeah, looks like it. I liked the fact that Teddy didn't choose to collect there. He just stood still, so he locked the Beirut in place. Otherwise, it would have just gotten killed off by the Mirror Phantasm. So Beirut is 1 turn, actually 2 turns away from reaching phase now instead of 1 turn.
Yeah, Teddy does now have the ability to push 9 damage this turn, possibly just needing a Flame Burst next turn to seal the game. It definitely looks like he's going to probably force a Frogify here instead of Pelorn being aggressive with that Dream Reaver, but we'll have to see how he plays it out because just goes for the single buff instead.
Yeah. I feel like you're still good with 8 Faeria on and 2 cards on hand, but you need to be able to spend this Faeria soon. Like you have to draw into Crackthorn and possibly a teleport. That's something you have to consider here, that Teddy's very low on cards.
Yeah, by keeping only going for the single buff there, it definitely looked like Teddy was going to try to set up drawing into a teleport for his other Axe Grinder. But now with it getting cleared off by the Frog, it really looks like an awkward position. Possibly that Mirror Phantasm just starts to step up aggressively, but maybe just go for the other Water Elemental and try to push 11 damage next turn. Just go for the Dream Reaver.
Yeah.
7 at 8.
We haven't really talked about one card here. What do you think about a Wandering Monk? It has some nice synergy with Library. So.
I would assume that you're probably running some enchantment, maybe Enchantress, but more likely just Gabriel Enchantment by itself for the Dream Reaver, because then you can set your opponent to 10, enchantment the Dream Reaver up to 10. So some of these cards where you're seeing the Sturdy Shell, the Wandering Monk, are able to get a lot of value with that enchantment synergy because you're already playing the card anyway.
Yeah, that's true. It's an interesting choice, though. Most Reaver decks don't use Wandering Monk. But
it depends on... Yeah, it does depend on how you want to build the deck, because you can play of pretty much all of your other creatures, and then Dream Reaver just sets your opponent to 10, and your other creatures are going to finish it off, like we're probably going to see here from Pelorn. Or you can play in more of the enchantment style, where you're really relying on the Dream Reaver itself, and then you start putting in some of these other cards. But unfortunately, Pelorn doesn't have the Faeria to Dream Reaver on this turn. Would have had it if the Water Elemental had stayed alive, because it could have jumped off to the right and then +1 Dream Reaver. But unfortunately, with not seeing that, I wonder about going for Frogify on the boss, just because it denies some value.
It seems like a good play. You set up
3,
lethal
5,
anyway.
7. Yeah, I don't think there's enough really nice movement by Pelorn there as well to move Barrow onto a position where it's going to deny another land, instead of just stepping the Barrow straight down, Water Elemental straight down, goes for a nice little crisscross just to deny another land there.
It opens up a taunt, however. But I think it would have... Oh yeah, he could have played the Wood Elemental on the left well as well. Another play he could have done was maybe dashing in the Dream Reaver to block the Brigand from hitting face, instead of using Frogify, but I feel like Frogify is totally fine here. Teddy has all this Faeria, but he can't spend it.
Yeah, Teddy unfortunately one Faeria off of the double buff and Crackthorn there, but going to go for the Grove Color play, clear off Beru, try to survive for as long as he can. Maybe a Crackthorn next turn can allow you to push the extra damage that you need, but actually is a very close game at this stage, just because now Teddy has been able to clear that big threat in Beru, and Pelorn is very kind of starved for resources at this stage, where he doesn't quite have enough to end the game.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel like maybe getting the Dream River on the board was a good play. You could have collected with the Water Elemental and then +1 dash the Dream Reaver to deny the Underground boss from hitting face.
Yeah, now we're actually going to see... Wandering Monk comes down defensively is a big indication of what Pelorn's thinking is right now. Looks like he's just going to try to fully reset and get that Dream Reaver down, instead of going for the aggressive, just try to end the game type of a play. And we actually see the library. That's very risky at this stage of the game. Don't believe we've seen any flame bursts come out from Teddy at this stage. So looking at that 9 life, you're essentially dead just to those cards in the deck, and it's just a matter of time. So putting yourself lower with the Forbidden Library is very risky at this stage.
Ooh, yeah, this is looking very well.
Now this does allow Pelorn to get to the Dream Reaver, and with your opponent at 9, you could Dream Reaver yourself to heal back up to 10, and then have the Dream Reaver enchantment combination like we now see picked up as your win condition next turn. But you really need to block some positioning right now, because the 8 damage that Teddy currently has, plus the 2 that you're going to take of self-damage from the library, is lethal by itself.
Yeah. We see the Growth Collar in hand for Teddy. This is looking very grim. So he has lethal on board if he doesn't choose to clear either the Crackthorn Beast or the Toad.
Yeah, it just definitely looks like as much as Pelorn was needing the extra Faeria from the library to get that Dream Reaver down, maybe on this turn, that self-damage when you're already so low is just so risky.
Yeah. And no Radiance for Pelon, unfortunately. Would have been a game changer here. Goes for the +1 and Reaver defensive.
It's going to have to be Reaver defensive at this stage. If you go for the aggressive one, you know there is enough damage on board. The only possible way you do it is stepping the sturdy shell back onto the lake directly in front of his orb, because then you deny your opponent from stepping there. But we see the other Grove Collar in hand from Teddy, so he's going to be able to teleport the other Grove Collar on the right up, and that's going to be a lot of damage coming through.
It's going to be lethal, actually. He takes 3 from the Toad, 5 from the...
Oh, very nice. Teleport away and then
library.
open up that alley. Very nicely spotted, and the self-damage does come through, killing off Pelorn, and Teddy will take a very tight series, 3-2.
Yeah. And the command is a bit too late for Pelon here. He would have needed that earlier.
Yep, definitely. So, very strong series. Let's toss it back, bring Aquablood back in. How did you find that one?
Well, that was a very intense match, and, I didn't expect anything less coming from both Teddy and Pelon. A 3-2 victory, very clutch there at the end for Teddy. It was looking like Pelon was going to win, actually, especially after that Beirut. The aggressive Dream Reaver I felt was the right play, because if your opponent didn't have an answer to that Steady Shell, you set up lethal for the next turn. But well played to both players, and Teddy does keep his tournament life alive, and he will go on and maybe win another cup. Who knows? But fantastic match there overall.
Yeah, definitely a situation, especially in that last game there, where Pelorn went for the play to win and not the play to not lose. That's something that we talk about a lot in casting Faeria, is you have to play to win at some stage of the game. You can't just play to not lose. You're playing defensive over and over, but you're buying time, but not really going to win the game, just because you're stopping the inevitable for a couple of turns. But yeah, very strong play coming out from both players there.
It just goes to show that both those players are quite evenly matched, and for those two players to meet this early in the tournament is a little unfortunate, because you're taking away one of the potential winners of the cup out of the game straight away. But it happens sometimes. That's how tournament brackets work. But well done to Pelon. I felt like he put on a good performance there. He has been forced to be reckoned with within the competitive scene for quite some time, and he was one of the first players to really play Crackthorn. I remember him really making his splash in competitive play with the Crackthorn list, putting it on the map, and then as it was adjusted through early access, more players were seeing its potential. So no surprise to see him start off with that deck, especially in its current strength. But yes, well done to him. I think he should be proud of his performance. It was a very close game.
Yeah, of course, you're playing the previous winner, right? So you always have kind of that expectation coming in of, I really have to bring my A game, and it seemed like Pelorn did there.
All right, so we are going to jump to a break, and we'll be back with round 2. Extra matches coming throughout the whole day. So we're going to be here for a while, and we are going to crown a monthly cup champion. And we will be back very shortly, so stay tuned for more Faeria action.